Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's special episode of Ttrpg Designer Spotlight, a special program where we uplift and showcase the work of game designers, especially those of marginalized identities. And with that, I think this is a great time for me to remind everybody that I and this channel stand against genocide and ethnic cleansing of that is impacting the peoples all around the world, struggling against injustice, imperialism, and colonization. Free Congo, free Sudan, and free Palestine. On that note, I want to take an extra moment to talk about the situation in Palestine properly. As we return after a global strike and the ICJ's recent historic ruling, we must continue to speak out against genocidal violence faced by Palestinian people. Your voices matter. Do not relent. And within the case of Sudan, there is a blackout in terms of communications. It is now imperative that we allow our voices to be heard on social media. Even a tweet, even a share, all of that adds up. Your voice does matter. And with that, back onto the show. Hello everybody, I'm Valiant Dorian. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a Ttrpg performer, Twitch Friday streamer, writer, wearer of varying hats, and as of recently, designer. You can find me all around the internet at Valiant Dorian or at Otso SpiritBear. Please try that lovely treasure hunt I just set you on. And tonight, I am your host of Designer Spotlight. And I also have the distinct pleasure of interviewing several amazing guests that you can see right on this screen. All of them are fantastic writers who have worked together on the successful, fully funded Kickstarter campaign for Jukebox, the musical TTRPG. Folks, I'm going to start asking y'all to introduce yourselves, starting with Lila.
Hi, I am the, I suppose, project lead for Jukebox, and I'm so excited to have all these folks on the call. This is actually not our full set of writers. We have a bunch of other lovely writers who are also not pictured here. Yeah, I am super excited to be chatting today. I am a project lead, game designer, and I do some freelance work too. The largest thing besides Jukebox that I'm doing is I'm the project lead for the Stormlight Archive TTRPG, and I also write over on the Jarvise Substack, giving sort of tutorials and advice about getting into TTRPGs and organizing your own group projects. And I will hand it off to Mendez.
It's good. I'm James Mendez Hodes. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a cultural consultant, game designer, and writer. Other work you might know me from for cultural consulting, Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, or the Jackbox Party Packs. For design, Thousand Arrows, Avatar Legends, or Scion. And writing, I wrote some articles about orcs. You might have seen people complaining about them, or complaining in support of them. I really like orcs.
As you should enjoy orcs. I'm going to pass it over to Brooke. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Brooke. I actually used to be a full-time Twitch streamer, so this is my return. But now I currently work at Ttrpg and Roll20 as a partner relations representative, and I have the pleasure of being a designer on this project Jukebox, as well as I've done a few Dungeons & Dragons related adventures and encounters. So it's nice to branch out into the broader TTRPG arena with this. So thank you for having me, Lila.
And Erin, go ahead.
I'm oh, there we go. Now you can hear me. I'm doesn't want my name to be heard. I'm Erin Roberts. I'm a game writer and designer and also prose writer, and I don't know, I've written on a bunch of cool stuff, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, a bunch of Lost Omen stuff for Paizo, and here, there, and everywhere, but most excited about karaoke TTRPGs, the two things that always needed to come together.
Absolutely.
Erin, did you win any awards recently?
Yeah, I'm sorry, award winning?
Huge awards.
Sorry. Yes, I am a Diana Jones Emerging Designer Award winner last year, and I think Radiant Citadel won a Silver Emmy, so that was great. Yeah.
just burying the lead there. Award-winning writer and designer is what I'm hearing. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Esakur.
Hello, my name is Serce. I go by Esakur with my the Ttrpg project. I'm from Argentina, and I've written for Arrow Studios, Moonlight on Roseville Beach, which I think also has an anime or something like that. And I also do my independent work. I have done some supplements for Troika, some drawings for Mouse Ritter, a big supplement for Here There Be Monsters by Wendy Yu, and I'm excited to be here and excited to work on this project.
Amazing. And last but never least, Jeremy, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy. I use they and she pronouns. I'm a tabletop writer and designer, former streamer. I used to be a co-host of They're a Super Geek, getting a little bit back into performance. And you can find me lots of places online at Hark Morper if you want to look at some of the individual things I've done. And I've been a small contributor to a handful of projects, Slug Blaster, Cozy Town, and I am thrilled to be a part of this team and part of this project.
And I'm thrilled to have all of you here for this very, very exciting, almost panel edition of TTRPG Designer Spotlight. And I think without further ado, we could just jump right into this, folks. And whenever I run this program, I love hearing everyone's origin stories. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today as well. I want to know, how did all of you come into the TTRPG hobby? And I'm going to start with Brooke. Please tell me, how did you get into TTRPGs and into the hobby?
Yeah, so it was almost like 6 years ago, so I'm a little new to it almost. But my now boyfriend at the time, was really interested in Dungeons and Dragons, and that's always something that I kind of liked, but I was like, what do you do? Like, what's the game? As a longtime video game player, the thought of just like using your imagination to tell a story, I was like, that seems cool, but also how does that happen? And so he GM'd the first campaign of Dungeons and Dragons I ever played in. And from there, the rest was history, because once the pandemic hit, that's all we did. We just played D&D every single night.
Oh my goodness. Is that similar for you, Erin? Were you also a Dungeons and Dragons origin story person, or did you have a different one?
Maybe. I will say that I always tell this story, but when I was in junior high school, there were some guys in my junior high who played D&D, and I didn't like them. I liked them, but I didn't like their game, I guess. And so I decided to invent my own version of D&D in a closet in my junior high school, having only seen the game once. I cannot find these documents, but I basically was like, we're all going to be in a closet, and then I know we make things up, I guess. And so I tried to create D&D as a junior high schooler. And just...
That is wild to me. So what you're telling me is your origin story is game designing from the get-go.
Really bad game designing, I think. I thought I'd made this up until a friend of mine on Facebook was like, oh yeah, I remember you used to make up that fake D&D in the closet. And I was like, it's real.
It's real.
Anyway, so that is my true origin story. And then, yada, 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 here I am now.
You need to have that on every bio you have, because that is an incredible origin story. Irisakur, how did you get to TTRPGs?
The first time I saw a TTRPG was in a Dexter's Lab episode in which they played some sort of Dungeons and Dragons. I was in primary school.
That was a great episode.
And I was obsessed because I didn't have any idea what that game was, how was it played, and for years I was obsessed on finding this game somewhere. And in Latin America we didn't have it available, or at least in the places I went as a child. And I even know another person who has this similar story, that he also saw this episode and was obsessed until he found D&D. And similar to Erin, thinking back on that episode, there was a class in primary school that we were supposed to make games, and some kid did like a twister mat. They copied and made a twister mat, and I thought, I need to make this game. I need to make the game I saw on Dexter's Lab, and I did like a whole a huge cardboard playmat, and I did some like minis with paper, but it was nothing like Dungeons and Dragons. It was not an RPG. It was very much a board game, and I think I still have it on a closet somewhere, and maybe I should do something about it.
I think you should, because these are the coolest origin stories of like, oh yeah, I saw a glimpse of D&D and now I will make my own almost immediately. That's incredibly cool. James, what's your origin story?
So I got a used copy of the Complete Thief's Handbook for AD&D Second Edition in a bookstore. I didn't understand anything that was in it, but I thought it was cool that it talked about crime. I didn't have the core book. I didn't really. So I just had this random supplement for thieves. A kid at school explained to me like what it actually meant, and then I had no one to play with, so there was just nothing for me to do except for forum roleplay. I don't know if anybody else came from forum roleplay, but it was a terrible time.
If I can make
terrible things.
If I can make you in this moment feel any better about this, I will divulge some Valiant Dorian lore, and that is I don't even have the respectability of saying forum role-playing. The closest I had to that experience is Facebook groups. If we remember those Facebook group role-playing. And Facebook pages, if we remember the relevance of Facebook pages back then, that's deep Val lore, fear for free, to make you feel any better about your forum choices.
That almost makes me feel better. Almost. I did terrible things, but then my college roommate got me into World of Darkness games in college, and then immediately after I graduated, someone introduced me to the indie game community, and then I got into conventions and everything. But yeah, it all started with. I'm not going to take your time with it. I found a way to do war crimes on a forum. It was terrible.
You were given a forum and you ran away with the possibilities of what you could do, and you know what? I can respect that. Jeremy, what's your origin story? How'd you get into TTRPGs?
I feel like I had like multiple kind of origin stories. Mine was fits and starts. My older brother introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons. The three of us siblings played back in 92, 93. We were playing the Zanzer Thames dungeon, if anyone's familiar with it, with the dragon cards, which I insist is still one of the best introductions or onboarding experiences for Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing. So my older brothers alternated being my first DMs, and then didn't play for years. And then in college, right at the end of college, I fell in with a group of folks who were playing Exalted and Unknown Army Second Edition, and just a handful of other things, and a couple of early editions of Microscope, and some other things that we played around with. So I played for a couple of years with them, and then really what got me back into it was back in around 2019, 2020, getting into some actual plays, watching kind of early precursors to Utopia and She's a Super Geek, and got deeply invested. And my first games back playing were on stream when I applied and got accepted to be on one of the co-hosts of their Super Geek.
Oh my goodness.
So then suddenly I had a monthly game, and that was my community of folks I was playing with again.
Oh my god. That is really, really cool. I do love hearing everyone's origin stories, because even though, like, for a lot of folks it is anchored in some form of D&D and existence of Dungeons and Dragons, the way everyone comes by that game or comes by the hobby is always just a little different. And last but never least, Lila, I know we talked about this earlier, but I do, for the folks who have not heard of your origin story, I want them to know. Lila, how'd you get into TTRPGs?
All right, well, I'll try to keep it short because there's like probably the 15-minute version of this on the other stream that we did. But it was my mom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't. Yeah. She played. Well, she got introduced to D&D in like the 70s. I mean, she had some old copies of the books, but she never found like a group to play with. And then she raised me on a steady diet of like sci-fi and fantasy. And somewhere in middle school, she bought me 3rd edition, and then shortly after, like 3.5. And there was nobody around me that was playing D&D or knew anything about it, but I was sort of the I had a group of friends that I could convince to do various things. So I got all my artsy anime nerd friends into D&D and was like a forever DM in high school, and then so much more after that. But I also definitely have a memory that was sparked from what everybody was saying about doing like a chemistry project or something, where I tried to make like a D&D educational like adventure something or other for things. So I think school projects and trying to get D&D to work for school projects is like a game dev origin story or something.
That is extremely game dev origin story, and I am pleasantly surprised at how much game dev aspects are permeated in a lot of your storylines in your origin stories. I think that's very, very cool and interesting. Before I get to my next question, folks, if you are enjoying the show, here's a reminder that you can support all of the artists and writers that are present here and our designers for this Designer Spotlight by hitting !donate in chat to help donate to our tipping goal. The proceeds will go towards our incredible writers here, so thank you so much for your generosity. And with that, now that I know some of the origin story about how y'all got into the space, the enjoyment of TTRPG as a hobby, what made you think, yes, I want to start writing, I want to start designing in TTRPGs? I know for a few of you, y'all decided to redesign D&D to experience it, but right now designing is a huge part of your life in terms of like being in the TTRPG space. And how did y'all get into that prospect of designing and writing? I'm gonna start with Brooke once again.
Yeah, so I was a full-time Twitch streamer for the longest time, mostly playing competitive games like League of Legends and Valorant.
I'm so sorry.
After 10 years, after 10 years of that, I had enough. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I have always really loved writing. So at the time of my love of writing and my love of role-playing games intersecting, I was like, what about making an adventure? So I signed up for Storytelling Collective's Write Your First Encounter. And that's actually where I met Lila, because she was also participating in the program at that time. So in a very roundabout way, because that's also how I joined the Drive-Thru Discord server and also how I got this job. So in a very roundabout way, everything sort of came full circle, and now I'm here. So it feels very correct. I would say I never had like game design roots. Like I never saw that I was going to design a game in my future, but I love writing and I love telling stories collaboratively. So I think it kind of fits.
Oh, that is so cool. Also, I empathize with you as a fellow League of Legends player in recovery. It's been a while. And sometimes I can still hear Volibear's voice. But that's such a cool origin story. I do remember speaking to you, Lila, about your like coming onto Storytelling Collective and writing and learning how to write from that. Do you want to share as well your origin story of how you were able to jump into writing in this juncture as well?
Yeah, again, the 15-minute version of this is on the other
check it out on my YouTube VOD. Go to my YouTube VOD and watch it. The longer storied version is there, but yes, give us a summary, Lila.
Yeah, I think the most like useful bit of it, well, maybe useful bit of it, was the first time that I started going to conventions. So the Storytelling Collective definitely also like plays part in my story, but I think that going to conventions and actually meeting folks that were designing games and playtesting games was really impactful for me. And I think you can do similar things online. There are like online communities where people are playtesting stuff, and you will see people that have made really cool games and who are working on the, rougher versions of their games. So I could walk over there and actually grab Raph's copy of The Zone, which was a game that I playtested at Big Bad Con, which was one of the first conventions that I went to. And it was actually quite polished at that point, but just getting to see people who were in the process of making it, I think broke down a little bit of the barrier that everybody making games is some has had some huge academic history in it, or I don't know, just got picked up by Wizards of the Coast and told that they were the golden child or something. That, I guess that is one thing I'll say. And since conventions are not accessible to everyone, there's definitely Discord servers out there that do stuff with playtesting and groups online where you can playtest things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, acknowledging the idea that game design and writing for projects and stuff can feel extremely daunting, and you brought up this is kind of storied academic perspective that kind of runs through a lot of this, and after hearing some academic backstories before on this call, not on stream, I feel compelled to ask you, Erin, did you feel similarly? How'd you get into writing, and was there a feeling of kind of trepidation or how daunting it was to enter into the writing space in TTRPGs?
So I am a prose writer first and foremost. So I write science fiction and fantasy short stories, and went and, did that for a while and still do. And I was basically helping to plan the Nebula Conference, which is the conference of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association. Yes. And we're getting our game writing. They had just started introducing the Game Writing Award. And so I was one of the planners, and so I got to talk to all the game writers while we were trying to get their panels together, basically, and kept saying, oh, I really want to do some more game writing. I really want to do some game writing. And I just said it enough. Then they were like, oh, wait, here's some game writing. Why don't you try it out? And so basically came to it through prose, which I think is not as common, and then had to learn the difference between prose writing and TTRPG writing, which are different, and figuring out how to switch back and forth between the two. But basically I just shot my shot. You know what I'm saying? I was you got to put it out there what you want. And this many times the universe says no, but occasionally the universe says.
Exactly. I love that. I will be taking that little bit of differences between prose writing and TTRPG writing, and I'm putting it in my little Ask Soon folder over here. But I do want to ask everyone else's introductions into TTRPG writing. Sakura, how did you come into writing in TTRPGs and game design?
So, well, after that small foray into game design in primary school, I had a long time of not coming in connection with TTRPGs at all until college, when I found the Monster Hearts and the PBTA explosion that happened there. I actually played Monster Hearts and PBTA games before I played the D&D, and after I started hearing some actual plays, it's when I thought maybe D&D is interesting, and I tried playing D&D. I found groups through Roll20 and small places. I didn't gel very much with many of those groups. We had very sporadic campaigns, and with very few games with random online people you didn't actually knew from anywhere else. And then it was during the pandemic, actually, where I started to see the things that were happening in the TTRPG space, with things like Troika, and with things with this new wave of OSR games that had a different kind of approach to writing and to what game design was. And it was maybe the pandemic, and maybe something having to do with having time and with loving this stuff, and maybe related to what Erin said, I had troubles writing prose and writing fiction. I always wanted to do something with fantasy and to do something with genre fiction, but I didn't find the traditional avenues of storytelling that fulfilled me. So I started. I tried to write something for Troika, and I wrote these very small backgrounds based on Argentine writers. Ooh. And I tried to make them into sci-fi fantasy archetypes. So we had Jorge Luis Borges, who had a tiger that worked like an icing dog, and a Cortázar who is hopscotch within the realms and that kind of stuff. And that got noticed by some people. and I sent it to some writings, some people who were looking for writers and everything, and actually that got me into writing for Roseville, and it got me a connection with Armanda, who is also writing for Jukebox, which is another Argentinian designer, and seeing her doing stuff in Ttrpg space, seeing Latam Breakout, which was a Kickstarter that did very well and that helped propose some other Latin American writers and designers, I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can actually like start writing and like doing this like kind of sort of professionally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my journey.
That is so cool. And the second you mentioned that tiger, I was immediately like, I love animals, and animal-based TTRPGs and all of that is my jam. So if you all have cool stuff like that, I'm immediately on board. James, tell us about your origin story. How did you wrote about? I heard that you wrote about orcs. What else got you into TTRPG writing other than how cool orcs are?
Yeah, so I went to a lot of conventions. I like volunteering and running games, and I was friends with a lot of game designers, and then I think eventually people started assuming that because I was hanging around with them and running games, I must also be a game designer too. So they started offering me writing jobs. I wasn't sure what that was about.
Are you telling me you just stumbled upon writing by hanging out with a bunch of writers?
Well, I couldn't do anything else. Like, I kept trying to get other jobs and it wasn't working out. So I got stuck here, and yeah, I can't really think of anything else to do.
Another tip for folks at home: hang around designers enough until you blend in amongst them and become a designer yourself.
Right. And I unlike everyone else I know, I don't have imposter syndrome because I didn't come here on purpose. But so I've been full-time since 2016. And I think a lot of my first jobs, like in like that, 2014 to 2016 space, were people came to me to write stuff that was related to my personal or academic background, something about martial arts or hip hop or something else that people really wanted to have a game or a supplement or a stretch goal about, but were afraid to write themselves for usually cultural reasons.
Yes.
So
yeah. No, that is a really cool origin story of like, yeah, I just hung around a bunch of folks and now I'm here. Usually the opening to a life of hijinks and shenanigans, and I enjoy that very, very much. And last but never least, Jeremy, tell us how you got into writing and designing in this space.
Yeah, I was trying to think back on this, and I think similar to what some folks said with their very early forays into things. I was looking for something, and the game didn't quite exist that did what I wanted it to do. I had found out about lasers and feelings and hacks of lasers and feelings, and I stumbled on one that I loved the idea of, called something like saving people, hunting things, or hunting things, saving people. And I liked what it was doing in terms of kind of emulating something related to Supernatural, but which is a TV show that I had always loved, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do for Buffy, and I didn't know that I wanted a game that could let me play out my own Buffy adventures until I came across that, and then I desperately needed it. And so I just couldn't get this idea out of my head, and started writing it, and assumed initially it would just be something for just me and whoever I could trick into playing with me. But that was right around the time that I got, I think, connected to Utopia. And just the amazing community of folks over there, and I started exploring this idea of like, well, what would it look like to create more of this, to put this out for other people to enjoy. and I really loved an idea that I had heard from, I want to say it was from Alex Guerrero, but just this idea of having a goal of just creating as much as I possibly could to get better, rather than trying to work on creating something really good. And so I was just, it became my hyper focus, and I was making things and putting some of them out on itch, just sending some of them to friends, and got deeper and deeper into kind of that hyper focus. And then also through their Super Geek, the very first episode we did was with Raid Nejati, and they were in the process of planning out a Cozy Town 2.0, and invited me and the other two co-hosts to each write a supplement for it if we were interested. So I guess that was my first commissioned gig.
So cool.
But yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it, and I've always wanted to get more into creative things, and I think that this was something that worked much better for my brain than trying to write prose or poetry or other things I had tried. My brain thinks naturally a lot in terms of systems and structures and breaking them apart and seeing why they work, and so I really, really loved doing it. I love playing with it. I could just sit and play for hours and lose time and realize that meant I should probably keep doing it.
Yeah, and I love that so much. And shout out to Utopia, because that was also how I got my start in the TTRPG AP space specifically. And then you can all thank or blame Candy from Utopia for being the person to fill me with enough just sheer audacity to make my own game. So you can thank Candy for that, and the folks at Utopia for all that courage. So I 100% hear you on that. Amazing. Thank you all so much for divulging with me your origin stories, both as designers as well as folks in TTRPGs and in the hobby as a general sense. Now, it's time for some confessions. I think this is a time that we lay our cards on the table, that we be incredibly honest with ourselves and with the audience. Raise your hands, folks here who are or were theater kids. I'm going to raise my hands and out myself right now. a hesitant hand raise.
Choir kid. I was a choir kid.
Choir. Okay. I'm including choir, all sense of other performance arts of like singing, choir, church choir. I'm including all of that. Interesting. It is interesting.
That was a dramatic kid. Does that count?
This is so interesting of the number of folks who are in those spaces and are writing for a jukebox. Interesting. Love to hear that. Is everyone here fans of musicals in general, or are y'all like, yeah, okay, that's the common thread, is that we love musicals. Amazing. Amazing. Also, and I wanted to ask this because I was like, I want to know how many of y'all are theater kids, just out of pure curiosity for myself. Amazing. Thank you for divulging with me. I wanted to ask y'all then about like the experience of putting forward a game for a musical project, and if musicals were something that have always been on your radar. I'm going to start a little differently than I did before. I started usually with Brooke or with Lila, but now I'm going to go in reverse order this time. Jeremy, how did musicals and stuff inspire your work in Jukebox, or was working in musicals something you've always kind of like wanted to do?
Yeah, so I was not a theater kid, but I desperately wanted to be, but I have really intense stage
I was like, that's the energy. Gotcha. I was like, I feel...
Yeah.
Wait.
I have stage fright and generalized anxiety disorder, and so I did not audition. I was in a couple of plays, I guess, but they 2 of them got canceled before they got performed. But yeah, I was a choir kid. But I love musicals. I saw this game, and it was immediately I knew it was something that I wanted in my in my repertoire. I wanted it I wanted it to exist. And so when I saw the Lila putting out the call for it, it was no question. I love musicals of all kinds. I think broadly about what I consider a musical. From Steven Universe to
now I gotta ask, what's your favorite musical?
That is a hard question. Right now, either Encanto or La Cage aux Folles, which
okay.
Connected to the Birdcage. I saw a live production of it here in town, and I love it. But I like a lot of things. I don't love a lot of the kind of traditional Americana ones as much as I maybe did when I first was introduced to them as just musicals. But
yeah.
I love a lot of modern takes on it. Or the musical episode of Buffy is one of my favorite musicals, honestly.
I've heard
musical episode of Buffy was like direct inspiration for my first draft of Jukebox.
Wait, really?
Instant battle.
That is incredible. That's a deep lore that I thoroughly enjoy. I have not fully seen Buffy. That is my another valid confession here. But I've heard tales of this legendary musical episode. That now I
it's
feel
the only episode of Buffy I've seen.
Oh. Apparently that's the way to go. I might have to invest some time to do that. Amazing. James, speaking of, do you have a favorite musical, and how is it like working in a project that is musical focused?
Yeah, so I'd say probably my favorite musical is Catalan. It's
yes.
It's I don't actually know what the plot of Catalan is, and I don't really care because that's not really the point.
I was gonna say,
but yeah, the musical numbers in it are wonderful. They like in many Indian movies have like little to nothing to do with the actual main plot. The main the hero is played by Prabhudeva, who is, I think mostly he's known for directing now, but he's one of my favorite dancers historically. And yeah, Mukabala from that is like probably my favorite music video. But yeah, I recently looked up the plot on Wikipedia when someone asked me this question in conjunction to when Lila asked me this question. And I was like, I don't remember any of these things happening at all. I just remember the cowboy dance. But yeah, I think that like music and dance in general, and then hip hop in particular, have been a major theme in many things that I've written, like going back to my very first assignments for Urban Shadows Dark Streets and Bubble Gumshoe. Both of those were about hip hop, at least from my perspective. And I've worked on a lot of musical games like Scherzando, and the thing that I wrote for Starcrossed, Alexis Roberts' romance game recently, was about taxi dance halls in the era of anti-miscegenation laws. So yeah, my playset is about the Wu-Tang Clan, and I every single chance that I get to write about the Wu-Tang Clan or the Wu-Tang Clan, I will write about them.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a great segue for us to talk about like the impact of musicals, as well as linking that to the playsets that you all are writing. So folks at home, our incredible writers here are some of the stretch goal writers for Jukebox and Musical, and they all have each their own themed playsets that they are writing for. So we will be touching on some of that aspect of work that they are doing. And I'm going to head over to Aaron. Aaron, please tell me about the playset that you're designing and the impact of musicals upon that playset and your excitement for it.
Sure. So my playset, Stop in the Name of Love, is basically you in a Hallmark movie where, you run a small shop in a community and a big, sexy, hard-hearted, cynical corporate person comes to shut you down But if you can convince them that love is real, then your shop gets to stay open forever. And I watch a lot of Hallmark movies. I grew up on soap operas and still watch soaps. Shout out General Hospital watchers out there. So it was just my chance to bring a little romance into the world. But also, I used soul music. I've been listening to songs all day, to like ones that I want to put in my playset. And so I come from a family of, this is not exactly true, but mixtape makers in some ways. So my parents, when I was growing up, had a company that made soul music compilation albums like the kind you can buy from Time Life. So that was their job. So they like had a company, they have like, for people who are older than all of you, I'm sure, they had like a famous commercial back in the day where it was like, can I get your record? Nah, my brother, you gotta buy your own. That is my parents' company. Anyway. And so when I grew up, they were constantly making soul music tapes. If you've ever seen House Party, you will see that commercial in it 1,000 times because the commercial was directed by the Hudlin brothers, who also did House Party. Anyway, deep lore. I was like, this is my chance to bring soul music, mixtape, mix album making back into my life.
Yes.
Plus Hallmark movies. Perfection.
This is the combination I didn't know I needed, but I desperately do. And I'm so excited for your playset. This sounds so exciting. Oh my goodness. That is deep lore. This is making me think I should have a counter on this stream for how many times our designers share deep lore about themselves. It's so cool. Isakura, do you have a favorite musical? And tell us more about your playset and the inspiration and themes behind it.
I think my favorite musical is probably Horror Picture Show. Mainly because it was queerness when I didn't know I needed it.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And yes, and besides that, I think like since I'm from Argentina, since I'm from Latin America, we had adaptations of many musicals, and we had incredible translations of the lyrics of the musical. So many Disney musicals have translations. Many episodes of like The Simpsons, episodes of musicals for like TV Universe have translation of those songs, like the ending songs of anime and those kind of things. Like were very impactful for me, and I always related to that and like comparing and finding this like relationship between the translation and the original. When I learned English for the first time and like could understand the lyrics in English, I was like, what's the difference between this version and this version? Oh, this is interesting. And so I was always like obsessed with that, and related to my my playset, I'm doing a revenge playset, revenge best served song, and it's very much my teen self when I was deeply obsessed with Sweeney Todd in high school, and I had my books had they had many pictures of and stills of the movie. I got obsessed, and I even convinced we didn't have a theater club or anything in our school. We didn't have like that kind of project in our high schools. So I actually convinced my English teacher to perform Sweeney Todd in my school, which of course a very good show to put on for children and for the parents of those children. It was amazing. I loved it. I did it. I directed it. It was before I came out, so I performed as Sweeney Todd. I adapted the screenplay, everything. So yeah.
My God.
After I did an exorcism of myself doing that musical. This is me coming back and like trying to turn those ideas and that inspiration into a playset. I really like these tragic melodramatic stories with like anti-heroic characters and that come from like a lower class background and that try to get revenge on the rich. So I want to do something like that for my playset.
I love that. I deeply empathize with that because Sweeney Todd, for folks who are unfamiliar, did get a revival as of recently with Josh Groban playing Sweeney Todd. Deep lore, once again, about Valiant Dorian. My brother and I, obsessed with Josh Groban. We love him. It started from us watching the Troy movie, actually. It wasn't because we heard any of his songs. We heard his song in Troy, Remember Me. And after that, we love Josh Groban. So Sweeney Todd is also something that's I've been chewing on it as of recently as a theater fan.
Did you saw the tiny desk? The tiny desk was amazing.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love it so much. I also wanted to bring up the idea that you were like, oh yeah, I had Sweeney Todd at school. I truly thought my high school putting on Heathers was bad enough. No, Sweeney Todd was probably not as, it's probably worse than having Heathers. Amazing. With that, I'm gonna pass it over towards Brooke. Tell us more about the inspiration behind your playset, and if you have a favorite musical.
Just casually, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street on the school stage. So
Just casually. Like it's normal.
Oh,
I'm just about to murder a man with song, but don't worry about it.
I have always loved music. My mom used to just put me, as a baby, would just put me in front of Disney music and just have me in like a swing. Like that was parenting. I was like, this is fine. Barbie musicals, Cheetah Girls, all the Disney High School Musical, my formative years. And my grandparents gave me Phantom of the Opera on DVD for my 13th birthday. It was my origin story because I was like, this is the moment.
Brooke, we might be best friends just because of that deep lore, because Phantom of the Opera, specifically the DVD, Gerard Butler was my first introduction to a Western musical. I obviously was exposed to like Desi musicals before, but
yeah.
I gotcha.
And I was like, this is everything. And from then on, any musical I could get my hands on, I was obsessed with. Sweeney Todd one. I just love like really dark Victorian era. It's romance, but it's tragedy. But my playset on the complete other side of that is on an island. So I'm Native Hawaiian. And we don't see a lot of Pacific Islander or island representation, and that was one thing I really wanted to bring to the forefront with my playset. So you are essentially, the premise is that you are stranded on an island, you have crash landed here, but maybe it's not that bad. So, you're trying to get off the island. There's lots of secrets to uncover, but maybe this island is a good place after all. And it's very reggae inspired, alternative, indie inspired. And these are all of the music that I sort of grew up hearing my parents listen to, a lot of Bob Marley, and as I was like creating my YouTube playlist inspo for this, I told Lila I got lost for 2 hours just in this nostalgia time loop. I was like, this is my jam. Why haven't I heard this in so long? I love music. It inspires so much of what I do, and that's why every time Lila brought up Jukebox, I was like, I love musicals, and eventually she's like, okay, just write for me. Like, yes.
I love that.
On Twitter, I love musicals.
Listen, I love that so much. What a very, very cool origin story, as well as inspiration behind the playset. I'm so excited for all these playsets and for folks to go and check them out. Speaking of checking out the playsets, y'all should go ahead and back Jukebox. Check out the link that I've just thrown in there with the command. Go and back it. We're in the last few days of backing Jukebox, the karaoke musical tabletop game. Please go and back it before the campaign ends. Thank you all so much for supporting. I have a question for you, Lila, specifically more on the organization side of things when getting together this huge project, this huge successful Kickstarter. Congratulations once again. I wanted to ask you, how was the experience of kind of preparing for stretch goal writers in preparation for a Kickstarter campaign of this particular size?
I definitely want to talk about this. I also just want to make sure that Jeremy got a chance. Did you get a chance to talk about Hearts Take Flight?
Yes, Jeremy, tell me about your...
a really awesome playset.
Yes, Jeremy, tell me about your playset.
Thank you. So my playset is going to be Hearts Take Flight. I am unreasonably obsessed with superpowered media. Grew up with comics and X-Men the cartoon and Batman and all these other things. And my dad was a songwriter. I grew up listening to tons of music in our house. And in particular, even though it wasn't really the song, the style of music he wrote, we listened to a ton of Motown and like Motown and soul and funk and R&B, and it wasn't the only music playing in my house, but I think it's music that I want to see more of in musicals. It's music that is really tied to my culture and my background, and it's also music that I want to see more connected to superhero stories. I want to see more very culturally, musically Black superhero narratives, superpowered narratives. But I've been describing this to some people as it's kind of superpowered West Side Story if they were doing Motown and funk music instead of kind of classic Americana musical. So some of your parents might be your teenagers, some of your parents might be, some of your families might be superheroes, some of them might be super villains, and you are trying to stop your families from destroying the city and destroying each other, while also dealing with the fact that being a teenager is hard and emotional. So lots of room for very angsty ballads, and figuring things out. Yeah, I'm thrilled about it.
As a fellow superhero fan, this is what we needed. This is the real. Hey, producers in Hollywood, this is the real dark storytelling that I want. Actually, this is the mess and drama that I want, not whatever the hell y'all are doing over there in Hollywood. I'm gonna be real honest with you all. Please, rights for Superman, please. I'm begging. Amazing. And thank you so much, Lila, for pivoting over towards Jeremy there. But yes, back to the question of how was it like organizing and preparing for our incredible stretch goal writers, a handful of them that are sat here with us today.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess preparing for stretch goal writers is like a lot of the process of, you know, the game had to exist first, so that's its whole own thing. That, you know, it took a long time. I think I'm like just so overwhelmed by how awesome all the folks in this room are. Like I have gotten short little like blurbs in the pitches about the stuff that you're creating, but this is actually the first time that I'm hearing some of the like backstory behind stuff, and it's just so dang cool. I guess I will say that to get playset writers, so I knew that Jukebox was fertile ground for, so, you know, I was making a musical RPG. Musicals are kind of a genre, but they're also kind of like a meta genre of which a bunch of other genres fit into. At the same time, you have games like Dialect or Fiasco. There's a bunch of games out there that have like the concept of play sets. So I'd written the kind of core game, but I'm like, I really want to get play sets into this, both because I think it makes total sense, but also because what I enjoy creating in collaboration. I think that's part of one of the reasons that I enjoy like role-playing games so much. Yeah. And the idea of being able to like successfully create a space where other people could kind of use my game as a sandbox and make their own awesome stories, some of which I would never come up with on my own, was a dream of mine, and is also just panned out so lovely, you know, thus far. It's like just so cool. So I guess that's sort of the germination of the idea. The way that I actually went about it, I get into this a little bit more on, if you go look at the media under the Jukebox Kickstarter, there was a interview that I did with Brent Jans over at the Rat Hole that talks a little bit about the application process and like some thoughts behind that in more detail. I think that as a person who is Organizing role-playing game projects, I want to like think a little bit more. I need to reflect on the whole experience, but one of the things that was important to me for Jukebox was, so I did a mix of some of the folks on this call. Like there was a small group of people I reached out to because we had conversations about stuff and I sort of knew what their vision was for a musical playset. And then there was also a much larger like call for pitches. And I guess the short thing I will say about the call for pitches is that I'm really happy I did it. I also understand why it's like overwhelming for creators of any size, I think, to put out an open call, which was like a thing that I knew going into it. And it was definitely some extra work, but there were some reasons behind that. make sure that I was not just inviting a bunch of people who I had met at a con or were Twitter mutuals, and like there's definitely selfish reasons for me too, of like, you know, I thought I would maybe get a better group of people or something if I put out a call, and I would discover folks that you know, I otherwise had no way of knowing that they would be like excited to write with like for Jukebox. And yeah, I was just blown out of the water. I definitely feel like I am the least qualified person on this project for writing. I shouldn't say that, but like just there were full on, like, I mean, we have some of the folks on the project, like people who have gotten theater degrees, dramaturgs. There was like a New York Times bestselling author in there. Like I don't want to say too many things that would be specific, but just like there were some people who had made games that I had heard. I mean, there are people on this call who have, you know, made games that I've heard of. So I don't know if it was just like the game or you know, or the nature of open calls or whatever, but like boy was there just a lot of really cool pitches, and I'm so glad that I did that process. And I have to think more about what you know, I write sort of like educational material and like case studies and like how things are going as I plan projects. So I definitely want to write a little bit more on this, but in general, very good experience finding writers, and super happy with everybody that agreed to join this project.
And I'm so excited to read that once that is made available. Please go and follow Lila and her blog. I believe it's Jar of Eyes.
Jar of Eyes, yeah.
Jar of Eyes. Please go and check that out when those reflections are out. And all the previous writings, they're all really, really good. Amazing. We're coming up towards the end of stream, but I do not want to leave the audience without hearing more about the cornerstones that make up each and all of your writings. So I'm about to give y'all a word challenge. I'm giving y'all writers a word challenge. In one word, describe to me a cornerstone of your writing and your design, the thematic element of your writing and design. One word, and I'm going to start with you, Brooke.
I'm glad I'm a fast thinker, because I think my one word would be empowering. That is one of the things I always come back to, having, you know, very strong female characters or a group of people who are here to reclaim something of theirs that was once lost. A common theme throughout most of the things that I design is always like nature and, you know, the balance between humanity and, you know, how civilization sort of covers everything as it goes, civilization. But, you know, Hawaii being a sort of land that was taken by the United States, it's nice to have that moment of reclamation. Like, this is our land. So I try to put that in every single thing that I write.
I love that. Erin, give me your one word.
Rooted, I will say. I think a lot of my work is rooted in who I am, the things that I love, the things that have made up my life, and finding ways to find the little pieces of joy that have been in my life and try to put them in games for other people to build their own little fun castles of joy.
Love that. Zakur, what is your one word?
I think kind of stole mine again.
Yeah.
But I was thinking the first word that popped in my head is grounded. I think like I mean I have a problems like doing diagnosis of my own writing, but I feel like it's grounded in my experience, and I try to like bring to the surface and turn into genre fiction things of everyday life and things of actual experience that are not actually appearing in genre fiction. I did a Here There Be Monsters supplement about the like a cyberpunk cyber cafe that it's rooted in the experience of going to cybercafes here in Argentina, which is its own culture and it has its own relationships. Or like I did for college, like a thing which I turned my city Paraná into like a fantasy setting and that kind of stuff, turning the real life stuff into fantasy and genre. I think that's the thing that compels me the most, and that's what I try to do with my writing.
And I love that. That's so cool. James, what's your one word?
Flash.
Oh.
Yeah, there's at the core of everything that I write, there's a central like inconsistency. There's it's not just not necessarily just like the literal conflict that's in the fiction, but an element like a contrast of like tone or expectations or direction that that connects different elements of things that are going on in there. I think of it as like there's a joke that's at the heart of everything that I write, and then everything else, like filling it out, is taking that seriously and following it to its like natural, serious conclusion.
Amazing. I love that. And last but never least, Jeremy, tell me about your one word.
I think it'd be community. I sometimes say that I think the thing I'm most interested in exploring is kind of the process and the challenges and the complications of trying to build community in a broader society that is designed to isolate us,
Yes.
especially those of us with marginalized identities.
Yes.
I also draw a lot of my background in community organizing, and I'm trying more and more to do more of the design work in community with folks. So yeah, I'd say community is kind of the central theme for me.
I love that so much. Lila, I can't remove this from you. Give me your one word as our final curtain close on the stream.
Oh gosh. All right. The best I can come up with after, however many weeks of this Kickstarter brain frying me is shenanigans. And my thought behind this is like me writing a successful adventure, a successful game or experience at a table is about this sort of beautiful interaction of whatever piece of media I've created, creating an environment that you and your friends can have memorable shenanigans together.
Yeah.
Jukebox is so shenanigan-y. It is like karaoke party, singing your heart out, and because it's based off of music, you don't quite know where it's going. It's very like much like a train that's like about to go off the tracks that you're getting it back onto with these like epic songs in it. But yeah, I think there's a reason that I really like writing with the idea that something is going to be interactive with something that the group is going to kind of own it and do something with it. And so I'm picking shenanigans.
I love that so much. And with that, thank you. Oh, I bonked my own microphone. With that, everybody, thank you all so much for being here and for joining us for this special episode of Ttrpg Designer Spotlight. And with that, I thank you all so much for being my guests for this incredible episode. And I want to show more love to my designers. Please, everyone, go ahead around the table and introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are, your pronouns, and how folks can continue to support you from here on out. We're going to start with Lila.
All right, my name is Lila. I use she, her pronouns. The one place I will send you for the next 4 days is please go check out the Jukebox Kickstarter. I am sure it is in the chat below. If you search Google for Jukebox Kickstarter, I'm pretty sure the SEO is good enough that it might come up. So please consider backing the game. You will get the work from all of these awesome designers here, including about twice as many that couldn't make this call. And then besides that, jarofeyes.com will get you to all my other stuff. My Substack has my long form writing about game design and project management.
Amazing. Brooke, take us away.
You're muted.
You're muted, my love.
Thank you. My name is Brooke. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me everywhere as Behold Brooke or Brooke Whitney on Ttrpg or the DMs Guild. And I'm happy to be here. Yeah. Thanks for backing the Kickstarter because I know everyone watching has.
I love that. Erin.
I'm Erin. I use she, her pronouns, and you can find me on the interwebs at Nirele, Nirele. It is L Erin backwards. Nirele.
I did find it very easy to remember your username when I was typing everything out. So please go and follow Erin. And Sakura, please tell folks who you are and how they can support you.
I'm Sakur. I'm a trans creator from Argentina. My pronouns are she, her. And you can find me on Twitter at genderisnotreal. You can DM me there for anything you want me to write. And my work is at esakura@itch.com. At itch.com, no, at itch.io. There.
Amazing. James, tell us who you are.
James Mendez Hodes, he, him pronouns. You can follow me at jamesmendezhodes.com or at Lula Vampiro on Blue Sky or Twitter.
Amazing. And one more time, Jeremy, last but not least, tell us, how can folks support you?
Thanks, everyone. My name is Jeremy. I use they and she pronouns, and you can find me in most places at Hark Morper. That's HARK MORPER, Twitter, Blue Sky, Itch, Card, and yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And once again, thank you all so much for being here. I'm Valiant Dorian, I assume his pronouns. I run the show, and thank you all so much for spending time with me. But before you hit that dial, please stay with us as we go and rate somebody amazing, no doubt. And meanwhile, while we handle that raid, I want to thank everyone here once more. Please go and support the Jukebox Kickstarter. There's only a handful of days left before the campaign ends. Go and support these incredible writers and designers making waves in the space. And with that, thank you all so much. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and do not touch that dial. We're about to raid. All right, folks. Take care, everybody. See y'all soon. Bye.